Welcome back to the news at 10. Now, during the week, the federal government gave an indication that it will open a fresh window that will allow experts to invest in solar energy. The reason for this is to provide alternative source of electricity that's affordable and reliable for Nigerians. Over the years, Nigerians have been groaning under epileptic power supply with a knock-on effect on the economy. So, how can this solar initiative be best structured to favor Nigerians? Joining me to take a look at this is an electric engineer, Mr. Arthur Osiago. Thank you so much for joining us on the news at 10.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so solar. One of the first questions that we'd ask is, looking at our cities and our communities, we see the kind of planning we have. Some people have cement, some people have zinc, and etc. How is it going to work?
Yeah, if you look at the world order today, we are talking about renewable energy. We are talking about shifting from fossil fuel to other source of power that will be environmentally friendly. Now, if you look at Nigeria, Nigeria is situated within the sun belt of the world. And currently, the average solar radiation in Nigeria is within about 5.5 kilowatt hour per meter square. So which means, and Nigeria is about 900,000 plus square kilometer. So if you have 1% of the land mass of Nigeria placed to actually generate solar energy, you have over 180 gigawatts of electricity, which is going to be 100 times what we currently generate. So now that the government is looking at this as an option, it is a good step, a right step in the right direction. But coming to homes, it depends on how you want to look at it. You may decide it's okay, I don't want to use my normal generator. I need something that is quite silent. So which means you need to procure some solar plates. You can see in other parts of the world, they have it on top of the roof. So you, of course, like in Singapore, even in England, where the radiation level is just about 3.2 compared to about 5.5 average for Nigeria. So if you want to do that, you can actually generate power within the confines of your home, and which is usable. You can do up to 10 kilowatts hour.
Okay, let me just stop you there. When we look at what we have already in terms of our discos and gencos, you have people who have to procure meters.
Yeah,
we have all the servicing issues that come along with that. I've paid for my meter, I don't have it, and etc. How are we going to get out of that with this solar thing? Because if it's by choice and if I can procure my own plate, I pay for my plate and my plate has not come, what do I do? What do we do with the peculiarities of Nigeria around solar?
Yeah, that's a very good question. We have what it takes, really, to let off so many people from the national grid. From the perspective of your question, the government can actually subsidize these solar plates and train some young engineers to help in installation. It therefore means that every home will now be able to generate within the confine of their home, let's say 10 kilowatts, 15 kilowatts, 20 kilowatts, depending on their consumption. Once they do that, these homes that were hitherto connected to the national grid will now be disconnected. You now have opportunity to give power out to the real sector that requires power for proper manufacturing process. So if government can come in and subsidize the solar plate, an average solar plate of a meter square probably will cost you more than 100,000 naira. I'm talking about a very good one. Then you still need the batteries to be able to put them together to give you that accumulated power. So for a home, if government subsidizes this solar plate, it will be very, very easy for the generality of the public to depend about 90% on solar generated power, while they let off the other power which they are connected to now, to the grid, to the real sector for proper manufacturing.
It still brings me back to my question of infrastructure. For instance, do we need legislation? Because you know what all the issues that come with the poles.
Yeah.
And you know, when I procure it, is the plate mine? Does the plate still belong to the government? If I have a problem with my plate, who comes? So there's so many other factors that, you know, I'd like you to explain. In terms of legislation, is there going to be a law? What is going to regulate it?
We have the National Electricity Policy of 2003. If you look at solar initiative, it's there, but unfortunately, there is no legal framework to back it up. So now that the government is really coming up to say this is where we need to go. They need to put all the legal framework in place so that it becomes a law that the agency can now, using the subsidies from the government, make it in such a way that it will benefit the populace. In this case, we'll have enough power to really power the real sector. Okay, fantastic. We will have you here again to explain more about it as time goes on and as it moves forward. Thank you so much, Electric Engineer Mr. Arthur Osiago, for sharing your thoughts on the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for having me. And from generating power, let's switch over and look at some business news for the day. Here's Emana Amawe.
You first. First Bank.
Welcome to Business News. The enforcement of the Treasury single account for ministries, departments and agencies by the federal government will, among other things, encourage transparency and accountability in these agencies. Well, this is the view of the economic analyst Henry Boyo, who was a guest on our business breakfast show, Business Morning. Apart from encouraging transparency and accountability, Mr. Boyo expects more attention will be given to driving the economy.
Before the TSA, you had stories of government officials putting government funds in banks and then collecting interest. Meanwhile, they hadn't paid salaries and they hadn't paid contractors and things like that. Yeah, surely, in terms of transparency and accountability, you are likely to have a better outlook. But in terms of the possibly also much more serious or equally serious area of driving the economy with indices that would be expected as best practice. By those indices, I mean interest rates that may be monetary policy rate, for example, at 2 or 3%, but certainly not 13%. 13% monetary policy rate, you are sending a signal that, look, we don't want much development in this country, we don't want much expansion in this country, because by 13% you are making cost of funds excessively high, especially also when simultaneously the government is also willing to pay 16% or 17% for its long-term borrowings.
And no bids were made on the interbank money markets today as banks awaited instructions on how to transfer government revenues into the Treasury single account. President Buhari's directive that all government funds must be remitted into the single account from today prevented lenders from putting out quotes until a clearer direction for the implementation is announced by the central bank. The overnight lending rate closed at 5% on Monday, but dealers said the rate was initially quoted at 200% on Tuesday. No deals were, however, recorded on the rate. And when the Treasury single account is implemented, about 1.2 trillion naira, that's about 10% of banking sector deposits, is expected to be transferred to the government account domiciled with the central bank. And the MTN Foundation, which was birthed in 2005, celebrated its 10th year in existence in Lagos today with a feedback conference. The foundation, which was established as a separate entity from the telecoms giant, engages in corporate social activities in the areas of health and education, among others. Our correspondent, Mary Alale Yusuf, reports.
Most Nigerians know MTN as a brand. But how many know about the MTN Foundation? Well, they've been around for 10 years, performing corporate social activities. And today, staff, well-wishers and beneficiaries of the foundation celebrate with the theme, A Decade of Impact. Great Unko, who benefited medically from the foundation after he was involved in a fire incident as a baby, which left him with severe burns, can tell you more.
MTN Foundation sponsored my trips out of the country for surgeries, and also they gave me scholarship for my academics.
Muftau Akurieju, a 500-level computer engineering student at the University of Lagos, testifies of MTN's intervention in his education.
MTN provides an annual scholarship for me.
The keynote speaker, former governor of Lagos State, Babatunde Fashola, underscores the true meaning of corporate social responsibility.
CSR is voluntary, and this is important because there is no compulsion. CSR 6, quote, to better the society. In practice, the areas where CSR has been active are areas like health, education, security, environment, and sports.
The chairman of the foundation highlights some of their achievements.
Those who have had optical challenges. We spent a great deal of money helping a projected 50,000 of such people to regain their sight. We've spent more than 1 billion in the area of scholarships.
How do they achieve all this? MTN says that 1% of their profit after tax is set aside for the MTN Foundation. In the former governor's words, they can do more. Perhaps they have already started with their promise of a further donation of 2 million naira a year to Great Unko for his education until graduation. Mary Alale Yusuf, Channels Television News.
Transactions at the Nigeria Stock Exchange closed red today as sell-offs undertone on economic uncertainties resurfaced. Here's Bolaji Akinwale with details.
Hello, welcome to the Stock Market Report. Equity transaction at the Nigeria Stock Exchange reversed the gains of the previous session as the key index lost to 0.91% to close at 30,311.77 points. The market's capitalization stood at 10.4 trillion naira. High cap stocks laid on the decliners table. Guinness dropped 5 naira 32 kobo. PZ lost 1 naira 34 kobo, while 40 oil chopped off 1 naira 11 kobo from its share price. On the gainers table, Unilever added 1 naira 80 kobo. It was followed by Cadbury and Wapco with 1 naira each. Cadbury actually added a little above 1 naira to its share price. On the volume chart, financial stocks topped the list of best performing stocks. Africa Insurance, Access Bank and ETI led other volume drivers for the day. In all, a total of 413.8 million shares were traded at the value of 2.3 billion naira in 4,331 deals. And that's it on the Stock Market Report. I am Bolaji Akinwale.
Many thanks, Bolaji. Well, it was a sad day for some business owners in Lagos as just about 1 week after a family of 7 was killed by fire in the Surulere area of the state, another fire incident occurred today in the Lagos Island axis. The inferno, which raised a 3-story building, affected businessmen and women who claimed that their goods worth millions of naira had been consumed by the fire. Officials of the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency who were at the scene say they are yet to ascertain the cause of the fire. Concerted efforts from banks in the area, however, helped to put out the flames. The 3-story building houses footwears and clothing stores, as well as 2 law firms. Most of the business owners affected by the inferno hope to find succor in their various insurance companies. Well, before we go tonight, let's take a look at how equities fared at the global scene. And that's it on Business News tonight. I'm Emana Amawe Ijoma. Will be back with the rest of the news at 10.
You first. First Bank.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Nigeria's powerlifter Yakubu Adeshoko sets world record at the Africa Games in Congo, Brazzaville. And that's beyond sports. Stay with us.